Good Thursday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com mailbag podcast presented by our good friends at Blue Water Climate Control with Austin Price and Rob Lewis. I'm Brent Hubbs. Again, we want to tell you about our friends at Blue Water Climate Control and what they've got going on for you, and an opportunity to see Tennessee play in Neyland Stadium this year with a pair of season tickets. All you've got to do is schedule a spring heating and air tune-up with Blue Water Climate Control between now and the spring game, and your name will be entered into a drawing to win those passes. Drawing is going to be held on April the 26th. If you refer a friend, you increase your chances to win. For more information, call 865-299-2290 or go to bluewaterclimatecontrol.com to schedule that appointment today. And remember, Blue Water Climate Control is offering that special discount to Volquest listeners because of all that they've done to refer so many referrals to Blue Water Climate Control. So for more information on that, check them out at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com. Bottom line, as we've seen in East Tennessee, you get your heat on 1 minute, you get your air on the next minute. Got my heat on tonight. I'll have the air conditioner on in 48 hours. And you better have your heating and air system right.
You'll have the heat on till August.
I might be in a hooded sweatshirt to August, but with the air conditioner on. It's, got heat on, air on, the whole 9 yards. That's the way I roll. We'll blame it on the blood thinners. But to make sure your unit is up to par and where it needs to be sure and use our friends at Blue Water Climate Control. All right, let's jump right into the questions that we have tonight. We'll start with a recruiting one out of the gate. Austin, any 22 in-state prospects that could earn Tennessee offers with good summer camp workouts, especially at defensive backs? Is there some guys out there you think Tennessee may turn the heat up on in 22 after a little more evaluation of them?
I think they're turning the heat up on Jalen Lewis. I mean, that one had kind of stalled out there. But in the last week or so, Tennessee's really started to up their efforts there. So be interested to see how that goes.
And who is, for those who don't follow it closely, who is Jalen Lewis? Where's he from? What does he do?
He plays at Haywood. He's a receiver, defensive back, whichever way you want to play him.
Okay.
Long. Probably could, stand to get maybe just a touch faster. But, I mean, a worst-case scenario, he's a safety to me.
Okay.
But if he can prove he can play corner, I mean, the length is really, really impressive. And again, like if you wanted to look at him on offense, I think you could do that as well. I mean, he's got some versatility to him. It depends on where they want to play a guy like Anthony Brown. Don't see Tennessee going with hard after Miles Pollard. I mean, they talk to him, but like that one, he seems like he's destined for Michigan or Oklahoma. I don't even think Tennessee will officially visit Miles Pollard. Guys that, not just defensive backs, but I mean, like you look at the guy like, the two kids at Beach, specifically Jackson Long. If he camps well, maybe could earn one. But again, I think all that's predicated on him camping, and we'll see, if he actually gets over here and goes to camp. But there's some different guys. There's a offensive lineman at Ravenwood that I think would bear watching potentially if he comes to camp. They could earn an offer from Tennessee, but that's kind of where things are in state right now.
And we'll see how many of those guys come to camp in the class of 22 as well as the class of 23 and 24 with opportunities to earn offers.
Two more. I want to mention two more names, and I right now they're not really in the mix, but I think if they came to camp and showed well, they're people that Tennessee could take another stronger look at. One's Tommy Winton. Didn't really play much his junior year. I thought that hurt him, really stunted his recruitment, along with the pandemic and not being able to go to camp the last, 395 days or whatever it is. And so I'm interested to see how he camps, what kind of senior year he has. The other one is Knox West defensive back Shannon Blair. Got a lot of offers from Michigan State and Virginia and Wake Forest and teams like that. He's a defensive back. If he came and camped well, I think Tennessee would be interested to see how they handle that. Again, I think those kids would have to camp well, but they're at least names to know in case they do make it to camp.
Both of those guys are going to be at the Rivals camp in Atlanta coming up this weekend, so an opportunity to show themselves against some competition from other states and some other competition. Rob, a little bit about the Blair kid. He's got some wheels, right?
Yeah, a really good player. I mean, really shifty. I mean, in addition to being a really good defensive back, I mean, he's an excellent receiver, really, really good return guy. punt returns and shifty with the ball in his hands. I don't have, and a really good kid too. So I think it probably for him in Tennessee, I would think he would have to run really well because I mean he's got quote unquote fluid hips. I mean he moves well. He's very coordinated. He's athletic. He's not the biggest guy, so I think he would really have to burn the 40 time at camp.
And we'll see again what he does this weekend, and then we'll see where he elects to camp coming up this June, starting in June when everything opens back up. All right, onward to the next question we go. In your opinion, where is this team at this point compared to where you thought it would be? Austin, I'll start with you. You've seen them more than anybody else. Where is this team right now compared to where you thought it would be coming out of spring practice?
About right where I thought they would be. No decision on quarterback. I like where they are at running back. I like where they are at receiver, and I like where they are on the offensive line. Offensively, I think it all boils down to quarterback. Now, I say that about the offensive line. I think they're a little further along than I thought they would be, just based off the fact that you did lose some key players off of last year's offensive line, and you weren't sure what you had at tackle. But I think they've been able to show they've got enough to feel serviceable. And so that's why I think they're ahead of where I thought they would be. So offensively, outside the quarterback spot, I think they look really solid. And we'll see where the quarterback spot develops. Defensively, to me, they're just woefully thin, and the secondary cannot afford injuries. And really, they need a guy like Deshaun Rucker to come in and be able to help them. I think if you can find Christian Charles, Deshaun Rucker, some young kids to step in and give you something. They don't have to be starts, but can spot duty, play a couple of snaps to help guys out. I think that would go a long way. And then linebacker, it's they're just have no experience there, and I'm not gonna say there's not talent there. They just don't have any experience at all.
Yeah, Rob, for me, I think they're with their first 5 or 6 guys, they're probably a little better in the secondary than I thought they would be based on talking to some people. But Austin's right, super thin there, kind of where I thought they would be in the front 7 on defense. Offensively, the biggest thing for me is I think they're better at running back than I assumed they would be, or a little further along at running back than I thought they would be, particularly when you talk about losing Ty Chandler and Eric Gray. What kind of drop off would there be there? I like where they're at running back. That's probably the biggest position of surprise for me this spring in terms of not having much of a drop off there.
Yeah, I agree with you about running back 100%. I mean, the fact that Jabari Smalls is, come on, that D. Beckwith is apparently not only going to stay there and has found a home, but has looked really good. So I think that's been one of the more pleasant surprises of the spring. I would have liked to have heard a little bit more about the wide receiver position. I mean, it seems pretty apparent that Jimmy Callaway has had a nice spring and made a move, but you haven't heard much buzz about the outside of Jalen Hyde, who's missed some time. You haven't heard much buzz about the other sophomores, and I thought that was something that was anticipated to some degree. And we only saw the one open practice, and Austin has seen some open periods. I thought the front 4 would be a little more, have a little more pop. I mean, they brought a lot back on offense too, don't get me wrong, but I thought that and again, that's a small sample size, but the day that we were in there, and I thought the offensive line really had their way with it.
Yeah, it was certainly a bad day for the defensive line. They've got to be better than they were. Malachi Wideman's name has not shown up at all this spring, and that's a guy you wondered if would be a jump start in a new offense, but it certainly doesn't appear to be the case. So, but again, I think overall probably where most people thought this team would be coming out of spring practice. All right, on to the next one we go. Names of class of 22 basketball recruits Tennessee's in on or might get in on with the new assistants.
I mean, I've got some catching up to do there. I mean, they just turned over 2/3 of their assistants. I'm not outside of BJ Edwards and Brandon Miller, 2 Instate guys who they're chasing really hard. I couldn't throw a name out there that I think is realistic or has deep connections to Tennessee. I'm not aware or haven't heard in talking with a bunch of people that either one of the new hires has a guy that they're super deep in that's that Tennessee suddenly in the top 3 because they got hired here.
Yeah, I mean, and what's interesting is you got you're coming from Marquette and from Austin P. So they were, quite frankly, recruiting in terms of the big 5-star names, big names like that. Those guys were probably recruiting a different type of player, a little bit different player than what, the big names that everybody would be attracted to. I think it's going to be, where do they go in recruiting? And recruiting in basketball is now global. So, is there West Coast kids? Is there more Midwest kids involved now? Is it more in the South? With Gainey's ties there.
I would guess that Tennessee will have really good chances to get involved with kids at Sunrise Christian in the near future with Coach Clark and his background from having worked there, and that's a powerhouse every year these days. He worked with a great program in Kansas City, Mocan Elite, but I don't think you're good. You might snag a kid or two there, here and there, but it's going to be tough to, overcome a Kansas offer if there's some kid in, Kansas City that they're in love with, that sort of thing. But I do think you'll see Gainey have a presence in the Carolinas, much like Des Oliver did, and Tennessee's always going to recruit Atlanta. But as far as having 10 names to throw on a big board for 22, I'm not there yet. Part of it's a staff turnover. Part of it's the dead period that's lasted for over a year with kids, not having the chance to go anywhere, which are now their junior years. All these guys with the new rules, a guy like Brandon Miller, top 20 recruit, he would have made some official visits as a junior. BJ Edwards would have had the chance, even though I think Tennessee is in really, really great position there. He would have had a chance to see some places. But I think a lot of these kids, oddly, unlike football, I think the basketball kids are not nearly as far as have been more affected by the ban on visits that the football kids have in terms of, I'm not aware that, it doesn't feel to me like Brandon Miller is very far along in his recruitment at all. I mean, Tennessee's had some Zoom calls with him, but, I think these kids are going to get out and, go to some camps this summer, take official visits in the fall. And it's kind of odd to me. I wonder if it's just because basketball is so much smaller. The relationships do matter more, the personal touch, but I hadn't really thought about that until just now.
Well, and the other thing too is what's the evaluation of some of these kids as coaches haven't been able to see them and they haven't been able to go out and play in the summertime of the year. So what does that look like this summer? Who pops up on the radar screen that grew 4 inches since somebody saw them play in a summer game last or whatever. There's going to be some of those out there as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and the last time I would guess, most of these guys got seen that are coming now were early in their sophomore year or in the summer right after their freshman year. And, not many coaches are going to, stake an what's nearly a 2-year-old summer evaluation and take a commitment from a kid unless it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. So that'll be fascinating to watch coming up June 1 when everything opens back up as well. All right, back to football we go. How do you see this offense performing with a serviceable but not great quarterback capable of beating the Kentuckys and South Carolinas of the SEC, Austin Price? I don't know what serviceable means. I don't know what serviceable means, to be honest with you. I mean, that's such a vague term. I mean, what are you saying serviceable? 60% completion rate? 55% completion rate, or what are you?
No, they've got to be better than Rick Clausen. No,
I think Rick Clausen is serviceable. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm with you. I'm just saying, like with their defense, like Tennessee in 05, 06, even when they weren't very good in 05, or 04, 05, but then when Clausen led them to the Cotton Bowl. Like they had some guys on defense, whether it be Omar Gaither or Kevin Simon.
They would win a bunch of games with Rick Clausen. I'm saying Rick Clausen is the definition of a serviceable
player. I get it. I'm just saying, like,
you're saying they've got to be better than that. So you're saying serviceable is not enough, Austin.
Yeah, because the defense. Yeah, okay. Rick had the benefit of having some real dudes on those defenses, and whether it be Simon or Omar Gaither or whoever, Paris Harrelson. That played in the NFL for a while or were really good players in the SEC. Whereas I just don't think they don't have that now.
Has there ever been a more mild-mannered guy off the field and just a complete maniac on the field than Paris Harrelson?
He might have led the conference in late hits his junior and senior year.
Just the nicest kid.
Yeah, he was. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you can out I don't think South Carolina is going to score a ton. Kentucky with a new offense, I'm not sure they're going to score a ton. Vanderbilt, I think you can go beat those teams with serviceable quarterbacks. I'm not sure you can beat Missouri, and I'm not sure you can go to Pittsburgh and win, just with a guy who's just kind of a serviceable, quote, doesn't get you beat manager of the game for exactly the reason you're saying, Austin. I don't think you can have a quarterback who's going to score 24 points for you and you're going to win many games. And I think that was Rick Lawson. I think that's when I think of a serviceable quarterback, I think that's a guy who it's a good day if they put 21, 24 points on the board. And I don't know with this defense that's going to be enough to beat a bunch of teams in the SEC.
Well, this program needs the Dooley year 3 type offense, like to just get some energy. I mean, again, if you're competitive like Lane was in 2009, and you score some points, everybody's going to calm down a lot, in my opinion. They've just been so bad on offense the last several years that, seeing more bad offense. And I know Heupel's coming in as this offensive guru, going to score points, but again, you're only as good as your quarterback and your quarterback development. So, I agree, Brand. I think a lot of it, their success or just kind of engagement as a program will depend on, what kind of quarterback play they get.
Well, and obviously you have an idea where they think they are at quarterback right now. If they're, going to bring Joe Milton in here to compete in battles, to try to win the job. He's not coming in here just to fill out the room. He's coming in here with the idea that he's going to beat everybody out and be the best option for them at quarterback, which kind of tells you where they think they are coming out of spring practice at this quarterback position. Since there are talks about the recruiting trail not being that hot this year because of everything and people thinking we will not break the top 20, would you just use more of the open spots for the portal instead of getting a high school recruit to possibly get a guy that's already a ready to play guy? I'm going to give a little hot take here. With the exception of a handful of people, I think the portal is overrated. I think players in the portal is overrated.
I agree with you, because I think that, the kids that, like, in a modern day, there would be like a Justin Fields, those type of guys are going to go into the portal because they're at a school that has 3 quarterbacks and only one can play and somebody's going to leave. And so, those type of players are, the exception. The rule is going to be the kid that's 3 years in, hasn't touched the field, can't sniff any playing time at all. Well, guess what? There's a reason he's not been able to get on the field. And in most instances, it's not because it's a position that only has one person on the field. It's a position that has 3, 4, 5 players on the field, and they can't get there. So I agree with you. I think you're always still better off to go the high school route, unless you're just needing a one-off or that type of thing. Like, I don't think you can go the old Mississippi State going JUCOs or Kansas State going JUCOs back in the heyday in the 90s. I think you've got to, you really got to focus on the high school kids and not get caught up in taking too many of the portal guys.
Yeah, and as somebody in the basketball side told me, it's, fans just look at stats or measurables. There's a lot of times there's a reason kids are transferring. They're the kind of kids you don't want in your program.
Yep, that's a good point too. Sometimes if you've got a kid who's been productive, why is he leaving? I mean, and can you get the real answer, and can you get your research as to why somebody's looking around? I'm not saying you don't evaluate the portal. I'm not saying, if Tennessee could get the linebacker from Texas, would that be a good get in the portal for this team? Absolutely, 100%. Quarterbacks, I totally get. But I think some of the other stuff is just a little bit overblown because of what you guys are saying. Either character issues could pop up with some of them, or as Austin mentioned, most positions on the football field, aside of the quarterback, they play a bunch of guys. And if it's a guy not getting playing time, then that's got to be a red flag if he's 2 or 3 years in, regardless of how many stars he had coming out of high school. If he's been in a program a couple of years and he's not playing or getting any playing time of any significance, why do you think he's going to come in and be a huge factor for you there? So I think you got to be really careful with the portal because it costs you an initial. And that's something you got to be mindful of, as Tennessee experienced with Keller Chris and Mondre London, particularly the London one. That was one that cost them a scholarship that, quite frankly, they needed to keep for the next class. All right, onward we go. How many offensive linemen does Tennessee take in 22? Is it a full 5 like in 19? Austin? I don't think they take 5. Do you?
I think they take at least 4, and
Okay.
and depending on who they could get, potentially 5, but I think at least 4.
Okay, at least 4. But you got to go what? 3 tackles and a guard in a dream
Yes.
world? In your dream world,
Yes.
I'm not sure that that's realistic, but in a dream world, that's what you would like to
Well,
do.
you need to at least take guys that can play tackle. Like Cade's a guard, but Cade can play tackle.
Right. You got to have a guy who's got enough athletic ability. Maybe he's not prototypical out there, but he could go out there and maybe play right tackle for you, like Cade can do, playing the tackle positions. All right, going to be going in a different direction here to baseball for a bit. I've seen bits and pieces of baseball facility improvements for us, but could you spend a couple minutes detailing what our real options are to upgrade Lindsey Nelson Stadium? What inhibits us from rebuilding on that site? What is realistic? What isn't? This program is at another level now, and it would be great to have your perspectives on realistic and comprehensive options. All right, let's go blank slate, writing a big open check. Yes, you could rebuild on that site. To do that, I think one thing that would be of consideration would be to turn the field the other direction. Okay, and basically put your grandstand behind where the center field wall is now, because when you look in the afternoon games and as the sun is setting, that field's not laid out like most fields are laid out, and so you have sun in the batter's eyes, and the sun is an issue. So it's a little bit, the direction of it is a bit different. I know when Dave Serrano was here, if he got to rebuild on that site, what he wanted to do was he wanted to build the grandstand behind the center field wall and flip the field and turn it the other way. You could flatten that and spend $60 million and build a brand new facility there if you had a blank check. I think what's more realistic right now, and what would make Tony Vitello happy, is get enough financial commitment to build out the left field line and go down the left field line. He would like a new weight room. You could do that underneath what would be the grandstands, and then down that left field line, you could do some club seating or premium seating, whatever you want to call it, and you could redo the facade out front, which is just cinder block, basically, and then make the porch area out behind left field and behind the outfield wall, make that a little more permanent looking, as opposed to just putting up umbrellas for the afternoon. So, I think those are some things you could do if you wanted to spend more like $15 to $20 million as opposed to spending $60 million. So we will see where Danny White is with facilities and where that possibly can go or can't go. Danny White saying on Volquest Monday night that he and Tony Vitello had some really good conversations about things. I would assume that is about Vitello's future at Tennessee and some things he's looking for, which first and foremost is facility and financial upgrade for his staff, something that is paramount to him and is on the forefront of his mind when you talk big picture, long term with his program at this point.
It's almost as if you've seen the artist renderings, Brent.
Well, there's about 7 versions of the artist renderings because they've only done like 9 feasibility studies in the last 15 years through 4 different athletic directors now on what to do there. So no, I've not seen them, but I have spoken to some people who have been a part of multiple artist renderings and people who have traveled the countryside and looked at multiple stadium options and multiple things out there. But those are, some of the things that have been thrown about and could be possibilities there. All right. Do you think the NCAA would consider allowing true spring games, as in Tennessee versus Tennessee Tech or Clemson versus Wofford? They could tell FBS schools they can't schedule FCS schools in the fall, and the ETSUs could still have a money game because you would charge at a discount for tickets. Just a thought. The answer to that is no. I don't see that happening. I see spring games going away more likely than you would ever see any kind of legitimate scrimmage between 2 teams. I just don't see that being the case at all. TV's different. ETSU's not going to give up a money game in the fall so they could scrimmage somebody in the spring, because nobody's going to pay $500,000 for a spring scrimmage to give ETSU that kind of money like they would get in a fall matchup with Georgia or Tennessee or whoever. So I don't see that happening at all. Anybody see those games coming? Am I missing something there? Okay. Austin, what's the latest on Jackson Long? Do you see an offer coming in the future?
I think he's going to come to camp. I think it's that simple. I mean, good looking kid, plays in a wing tee offense, has had no camps. So I think that you got the Florida State offer. Coastal Carolina has offered. I think Arkansas State is close to offering. But I think he's got to come to camp. Do I think Tennessee should offer? I think Tennessee should offer anybody that they like. When I mean like, I don't mean love. Okay, if you think there's a chance that you may want to go on them in the future, I think you offer just to get in the game. That's just my take on how Tennessee should handle recruiting. With the in-state kids. So if you like him, you should offer him.
Well,
you don't have to love him to offer him.
Yeah, I think one thing that you have to be mindful of as a staff when you come in here, and I think we've seen this with some previous staffs, just because you offer an in-state kid, they're not packing their bags and crawling to Tennessee 2 minutes after that offer is getting it. They're not. I mean, you're going to have to recruit them. I mean, with where Tennessee's at, where kids are with Tennessee, an in-state kid is just not going to drop everything and say, wow, my in-state school offered, I'm done. I just think that's, to your point, you got to offer to be in the game, not just in the state of Georgia or North Carolina, but in the state of Tennessee.
I mean, look at what happened with Zion Loeb when Jeremy got here. They didn't offer when he first got here. Got to see him camp. He goes to Georgia and Alabama and camps first because their camps happen to happen first on the calendar. They both offer. Well, at that point, like Tennessee just has to offer to get in the game. Well, it was over at that point. It was over.
Yeah. Because
you had slow played the kids. And I'm not saying Jackson Long is Zion Logue or anything like that. But my point is like, if you like them, not love them, if you just like them, you should throw out the offer. There are plenty of kids that are sitting in this state that have Tennessee offers that I think if they wanted to commit to Tennessee, I don't know if Tennessee would take them there. And so like, I don't know why there's I feel like, that part of it to me is just weird. Like the old days of, if you cut a kid like Tim Hart and it just cripples you in Memphis at MUS, those days are over. I mean, Tennessee, they got Elijah Howard last year and the kid moved on quickly to Virginia Tech and it wasn't a big deal. Like, I just, this whole notion that you're going to make people mad in the state just isn't the case anymore. Like, especially when it comes just to an offer, you offer them, then you decide whether you like them to take them or not.
Rob, basketball question. Any chance that, is it Dante still entering the portal? Staff been in contact at all with Abdul Ado, big man transfer with experience, the only other take at this point besides Tamba?
I mean, I guess there's a chance in Folly Dante transfers, but I haven't heard any rumblings about that. I mean, portal stays open for a couple more months, which, by the way, is a rule that's going to be changing. I think next year there's going to be, I think right now that thing runs till I want to say till the end of June. Don't quote me on that because I'm pretty sure it runs until the end of June. Next year, I think they'll put in legislation where it closes on May 1st to give coaches a little more certainty with the rosters. I mean, there's a chance he could. I haven't heard any of that talk recently. If he does, I think Tennessee will be right in the thick of it. Adu hasn't announced what he's doing, to my knowledge. I've been asking around on that, so I don't know that Tennessee's been in contact with him. I don't know if he's told Mississippi State he's coming back. If if he's going to try to play professionally somewhere, Tennessee 100% will be involved there. If he does do something on the downside there, Des Oliver was the guy that was recruiting him the first time around. I'm not saying that's insurmountable, but it's not like Tennessee has a built-in tie there anymore. And yeah, I have it on pretty good authority. I would say that the big man transfer with experience is the only other take right now.
All right. So
latest on Mac McClung.
I have no idea. Did he land anywhere?
I don't know, man.
Any chance, Rob, that Tennessee's got any interest in, is it Daisu from Vandy?
Oh, absolutely. Tennessee and every other Division I program in the country is going to have interest. I mean, that kid's going wherever he wants to go.
He's got plenty of offers out. He's going to have plenty of opportunities out there. All right,
every opportunity in America.
Time getting away from us here pretty quickly, so we'll go back to football. Austin, for you, thoughts on what happened with Evans decommit? Should we keep an eye on Aaron Willis? Never seems to be included when listing bodies coming back to the linebacker room. If Willis leaves, does that affect our relationship with their school? Seems to be talent-rich pipeline we were opening up. Bonus question: how's Dominic Bailey progressing?
I think they were opening that pipeline because Joe Ostavad had been working that school and he had the ties to the Northeast when he left. I think, that all that's a bit overblown. Like, I don't think Tennessee was going to just continue to roll into St. Francis and pull kids out of there. A lot of that was, the relationship that Ostavad had with the coach up there. I think with Katron, when the thing kind of got weird, I mean, there was a point, Brent, and you know this, like that all those kids that got in trouble, they were worried they were going to not be here. They're going to be here if they want to be here, this summer, and it is what it is. But I think at that point, like Katron really kind of got skittish about it all because Willis is his buddy, and Aaron was not feeling like he was going to be back. Blah blah blah. Well, Aaron knows he can be back. I think Aaron will be back. I guess anything could change, but I think Katron really kind of waffled back and forth. The problem is when you put in a request for to be released from your NLI, you have 30 days. Tennessee had 30 days to respond. Well, they went back and forth with the kid, and by the 30th day, they had to give an answer. Well, Tennessee's not going to be this big ogre and deny the kid like when they've let other kids out. So, they granted it, but again, the kid was waffling back and forth this whole time. So, it sure doesn't feel like he would come back here. I would not 100% close the door, but I think that more than likely he's not going to be here. And so I think that ultimately it just kind of is what it is. And I'm not sure he and Rodney were, simpatico on things. And so Dominic Bailey, a guy that can help, but I still think he's probably a year or two away.
All right. What's changed for Harrison Bailey? 4 months ago, we were stoked he was the future quarterback. Now it seems like the options have changed. Our opinions have changed. Arm strength an issue from 5-star phenom to potential transfer portal in 4 months seems confusing. Caden Salter pre-suspension and Joe Milton seemingly have a better path forward than our previous favorite child. Go ahead.
Who anointed him this? I mean, he had a couple of nice plays late in the year and showed a little moxie. I mean, I don't think anybody was anointing him as, the savior of Tennessee football. I mean, I know there were some high hopes, when he first signed, but, I think that Harrison's got some really nice qualities to him. I think that there are other qualities to him that probably hurt him a little bit. He's not real vocal. That was something that the last staff, was very cognizant of. I think that's something that this new staff has learned. Is he when he gets in the huddle and when he's around his teammates, he's just, I mean, that just kind of is what it is. It's not a knock on him, but I mean, I think out of your quarterback position, you want a guy that commands the huddle. And, people are always, telling me just how kind of, quiet he is whether it's his cadence or calls, and, the linemen are like, you got to speak up. So, I mean, again, I think that Tennessee's got to figure it out one way or the other. And if it's Harrison Bailey, it's Harrison Bailey. If it's not, it's not. They got to get the quarterback position fixed.
Well, and I think for Harrison Bailey, Rob, for me, the biggest thing is, can he vertically get the ball down the field with consistency? Because that's what this offense is about, is a vertical passing game. And then, Joe Milton's got a big arm. He can throw it. I'm not saying he's the starter. I don't know. I've not seen Caden Salter. I know this, though. For this offense to be at full tilt, if you go back and look at anything Josh Heupel's been a part of, the ball's got to go vertically down the field with some accuracy. And who can be that whoever does that with any kind of consistency, in my opinion, is going to be the quarterback of this team.
Yeah, I don't think that guy's on the roster right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could certainly be wrong, but that's my opinion.
Yep, we'll see what happens over the course of the summer. We'll see who remains. We'll see who's added. We'll see who is departing, if anybody departs, and we'll see who develops moving forward. So that was a storyline going into spring that we knew would not get answered. It remains a storyline coming out of spring practice, which will wrap up on Saturday with the orange and white game. That's going to do it for this edition of the Mailbag Podcast presented by Blue Water Climate Control. For Rob Lewis and Austin Price, I'm Brett Humps. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your Thursday, everybody.